girl took a Tylenol to help with a cold, but within hours, she was dead. Over the next few days, 6 more people in the area died the same way. The deaths triggered nationwide panic. Stores pulled Tylenol from shelves, and millions of bottles were recalled. Authorities launched a massive investigation and discovered the capsules had been laced with cyanide. The tragedy led to the invention of tamper-proof seals, but the poisoner was never caught. This train is headed straight towards 5 people. Now, if you pull this lever, the train will divert to another track where only one person is tied down. Most people would choose to pull the lever, taking 1 life to save the 5. But now imagine that you're a surgeon and you have 5 dying patients who all need a different organ transplant to live. You could harvest the organs from 1 healthy person, which would save these 5 dying patients but end his life. So does saving 5 lives really justify taking 1? What do you think? The McFlurry spoon is square and hollow because it's actually attached directly to this machine. The cup with your ice cream and toppings is placed underneath as the spoon goes inside. Then the machine spins the spoon like a drill as the cup is moved around. This stirs the ingredients together to create the perfect signature mix. Once it's ready, the spoon is detached from the machine and served with your McFlurry. A tiny nail is placed inside the drilled hole. Then it's glued shut and repainted. This makes one side of the die heavier, causing the opposite side to land face up more often, allowing you to cheat. Another method is heating the die slightly, with the number you want pointing upwards. As it cools down, the melted part settles unevenly, which changes its balance, making it more likely to land on your chosen number. And sometimes, certain sides of the die are shaved down to make them flatter. The flatter side doesn't roll as easily, making it land on the bottom with the number you want facing up. He dropped big rocks into an empty jar, which represented life's most important things: family, health, and dreams. Next, he poured in a handful of pebbles. They slipped through the gaps, settling around the rocks. But there was still room for them because the important things were already in place. These pebbles were the smaller but still important things, like your job and house. Then he took a scoop of sand and poured it in. The tiny grains filled every crack and crevice. The sand was all the small things, like hobbies, watching TV, and vacation. Now, if the sand had gone in first, there would have been no room for the pebbles. And if the pebbles were first, the rocks wouldn't fit. Meaning the most important things in your life, the rocks, have to go first. Finally, he poured in a cup of coffee. It seeped through the sand into every last microscopic bit of space, completely filling the jar. Because even when life feels full, there's always room for a cup of coffee. If you drank 70 cups of coffee, the amount of caffeine could easily kill you. But just a few teaspoons of caffeine powder can be even more dangerous. You see, a single teaspoon of caffeine powder is equivalent to about 28 cups of coffee. In 2019, a man accidentally mixed in too much of this powder in his drink. It was the equivalent to 200 cups of coffee. This led to his heart beating extremely fast. He started foaming at the mouth before eventually dying. Their tails can become tangled in the dirt and other sticky substances. As the rats struggle to free themselves, this knot tightens, making it impossible for them to break free. The tangled mess of tails is known as a rat king. Because they're unable to move or find food, the rats will most likely die from starvation. Now, these are rare, but when they do occur, they're sometimes preserved and displayed in museums. The rat ran up his leg and peed on him as he reached for the golf ball. After shaking it off, he finished his game and forgot all about it. But 2 weeks later, he started turning yellow and was rushed to the hospital. Doctors discovered the rat had actually been carrying a rare bacteria, and when it peed, some got into a small wound on his skin. It shut down his kidneys, causing him to change color, and despite treatment, he didn't survive. He grabbed at the mouse, but it ran up his sleeve and out through the neck of his shirt. As he yelled and tried to catch it, it darted into his mouth. And in shock, he swallowed it. The mouse panicked and began tearing and biting the inside of his throat, causing him extreme pain. And the man died, his throat and chest torn up by the mouse's movements. When you set a mousetrap, a bar connected to a spring is pushed back and down. Then a metal rod is meticulously placed over this bar, holding it back at the end of the trap. The bait, usually strong-smelling foods like cheese, sits on a sensitive pad near the top of the spring mechanism. Once the mouse touches the bait, it triggers the sensitive pad to unhook the metal bar, releasing the tension-filled spring. This causes the hammer to rapidly snap down onto the mouse. As it stepped onto the pressure plate, the weight would set off a spring-loaded trigger. This would fire a gun, sending a bullet straight at the rodent. The sound would alert the owner that the trap had gone off, so they could dispose of the mouse and reset the trap. But if a person accidentally stepped on it, the bullet would shoot them in the foot, which is why this device never really caught on. You could stuff a tire in your mouth if your cheeks were like a hamster's. That's because you would have an extra 2.5 square feet of skin that would be able to stretch to your shoulders. The skin would fold inward like hidden pockets, forming deep pouches that expanded into your neck. With so much space, you could fit over 60 Big Macs. And with all that food, your mouth would need to make 7 cups of saliva just to break it down and swallow. Inside the assassin's teapot, there are 2 chambers, one filled with tea and the other filled with poison. If you cover the hole on the poison chamber, it blocks the air coming in, which stops the poison from coming out, so only the tea will be poured in your cup. Covering the hole on the tea chamber will allow only the poison to be poured out in the enemy's cup. Covering both holes makes it so nothing comes out, and pouring with both open allows the 2 liquids to mix together. Once the water is poured above this column, the cup will automatically drain it completely. And this happens because inside the column, there's a hidden open channel. This channel extends from the bottom of the stem to the top of the column and back to the bottom of the cup. As you pour, the water rises and starts to flow into this channel. And once the water level reaches this point at the top, gravity makes it begin to fall, which triggers a siphon effect, causing the cup to completely drain through the bottom. They put a tack on her chair as a joke, and when she sat down, it pierced her skin. She let out a yell before laughing at the prank. But a few days later, she began to feel sick. You see, the tack actually had bacteria on it, which entered her bloodstream through the wound. The infection quickly spread, causing severe blood poisoning. Doctors did everything they could, but unfortunately, she didn't make it. He stuck a Lego piece up his nose, and it got stuck. So he shoved a different piece in the same nostril because they connected together, and he thought it was a smart way to remove it. But instead, both pieces ended up getting stuck. His mother pulled out the bigger piece, unaware that the smaller one remained deeply lodged inside. For 26 years, he struggled with congestion, asthma, and sleep apnea without realizing why. Then, one day, while blowing his nose in the shower, the Lego piece suddenly popped out after 26 years. He inhaled the dart tip while playing with a toy gun, and his parents rushed him to the hospital to get it removed. But the doctors found nothing and sent him home. For 44 years, he suffered constant sniffles and headaches, which he thought were caused by allergies. But one day, he started sneezing, and the rubber dart flew out of his nose, letting him breathe properly for the first time in 44 years. The man swallowed his AirPod as he was sleeping, and without realizing, he woke up to drink some water. But he couldn't swallow and had to lean over the sink to let the water drain from his mouth. He thought nothing of it and went back to sleep. But the next morning, he felt pressure in his chest, and an X-ray revealed his AirPod stuck in his esophagus. The doctor inserted a lasso tool down his throat and pulled it out. If you listen to really loud music through your earbuds, the loud sounds cause the tiny hair cells in your inner ear to vibrate excessively. Over time, this intense vibration can lead to the breakdown and death of these hair cells. Once damaged, these cells cannot regenerate, leading to permanent hearing loss. Additionally, prolonged exposure to loud noise can cause tinnitus, a constant ringing in the ears. As he pulled the earbud out, a piece of it snapped off inside his ear. Now, he didn't realize it at the time, but over time, his hearing got worse. He assumed it was due to his noisy aviation career and put up with it for 5 years. He finally bought an endoscope and spotted the small white object lodged deep in his ear. The surgeon used miniature tweezers, and after a few tugs, it popped out. Instantly, the man could hear clearly again, for the first time in 5 years. She had a seizure and died, and her funeral was held the next day. But her sister arrived late and begged to see her one last time. So they dug up the coffin for a final goodbye. But when they opened the lid, the corpse sat up and smiled. The minister screamed and fell into the grave, and her family ran, convinced she was a ghost. But they quickly realized the doctor was wrong. She wasn't dead after all, and she lived 47 more years before dying for real. He dreamt he was walking through the White House late at night and stumbled upon a room draped in black. Inside, a casket rested in the center, guarded by soldiers. Confused, Lincoln asked one of them who had died, and the guard said it was the president who had been assassinated. Lincoln woke up and dismissed it as just a dream, but 3 days later, he was shot in the back of the head at a theater. The poodle fell and hit the head of a 75-year-old woman. Both died instantly, and a crowd gathered around them, spilling out into the street. A passing bus hit a different woman, who died from the injuries, and a nearby man suffered a heart attack from the shock of seeing all 3 deaths. He died on the way to the hospital, making him the 4th victim of the dog's fall. He charged full speed at his office window while students cheered, but the window frame gave way and he fell all the way to his death. You see, he was trying to demonstrate the strength of the window, as he had done many times before, to impress the students. But this time, he went back for a second try and didn't know that the window had slipped out of its frame.
Driving too far, I'd like to change my point of view. I feel so lonely, I'm waiting for you, but nothing ever happens, and I wonder how, I wonder why. Yesterday you told me about the blue, blue sky and all.